As I sit down here to record this Sunday morning Mother's Day, I want to shout out my mom who watches all of these videos and is really responsible for not just my sense of humor, but just giving me the courage to be who I am every day. So here we are, game 3, and it's always the odd games in a series that are the most important, right? Game 3, game 5, and if you get there, game 7. Now, it was young Zaire Williams starting in place of Dillon Brooks for Memphis, and I think that kind of gave the nudge to Steve Kerr, like, all right, well, we can start our rookie as well. So you see it, Kuminga in the starting lineup Saturday evening at Chase. Opening possession, I liked how dialed in everybody looked defensively, and it was a good defensive possession, but it didn't matter. Young Zaire Williams, who remember played his ball at Stanford with Clay draped all over him, hits the three. And then look, this isn't the regular season. All your early actions are scouted out. They were all over this lob to Kuminga early. Everyone knows how poor of starts we've gotten off to in these games. To me, it really boils down to Steph and Draymond setting the tone. Now, it may not be directly their mistakes all the time, but those two as the leaders have to be more focused than dialed in to start these games. It's on them to get us off to a good start. We had some bad, kind of nervous, anxious shots to start this game, but Kuminga looked pretty good against Ja on a couple of occasions here, and I think you can see Ja feels his length and athleticism. He's aware of it, and I don't mind the grab and go from Kuminga, but again, this isn't the regular season. You're not going to get bailed out with touch calls. You have to be deliberate and physical and be prepared to play through that contact. But again, as a slasher, as a check down mate for Draymond, no one better on this roster. A lot of tough makes from Memphis early in this game, and what's tough with Jackson Jr., Williams, even Bane to an extent, they've got big shooters, right? They can shoot contested jumpers. Draymond did a much better job sucking up the space and just making them react to him downhill. But listen, man, the way they shot the ball to start this game, it just felt like a bad omen because you look at the context of this. All right, it's game 3 in our place. You figured we came out and won this first quarter, and with this kind of, you want to call it lucky shooting from Memphis, they stole that. They had a lucky quarter to start the biggest game of the series. You see, at least Kuminga wasn't afraid, but he took it into trouble time and time again. They love that lob to Zaire. Oh, boy. But I think what you saw was a championship pedigree, the veteran composure. I love that they went to the pick and roll early and often. Kuminga visibly frustrated. He gets tripped up here, but look, he's a rook and it's the playoffs, so he can't expect many calls. And I'm all right with some anger and frustration as long as he focuses it in the right direction. It was interesting, though, because they couldn't miss from 3, but what actually broke the rhythm and stalled their offense was dropping into this zone about halfway through this first quarter. So you got to credit Kerr for adjusting quickly. Who knows, maybe it was part of the game plan going into it, but for whatever reason, they took too long to get into it. Everybody was hesitant, and it stole their rhythm after that crazy hot start. Now, I love this finish from Poole out in transition. It's kind of a Euro style where you don't really jump, and then he wrong hands it, but it'll protect him. We got to be wary of Poole elevating and finishing the rest of this series. Unfortunately, that's just the facts of it. But, I mean, look at this shot. Ridiculous. And as this stuff started to pile up along with the turnovers, I don't know about y'all, but, I mean, I was like, dude, this is looking bad, right? And if that wasn't enough, at home, we started getting a bad whistle. Suspect travel call on Otto Porter. Then what looked like clearly a charge, Jaren Jackson Jr. throws him off. I've said it all year, Otto might get the worst whistle I've ever seen a veteran get, and then this happens. And here's the funny thing about it is the ball goes behind him, yet he shoulder charges at Poole's knee. So if we want to make accusations, that was the most flagrant play made last night, and somehow it was a foul on Poole. So, but somehow, some way, we cut this to a 2-point game at the end of the first quarter. I think the emotions of all the plays that felt unlucky or wrong, it made it feel like it was much more of a lead than it actually was. And then Clay with a nice second pivot for the and one around Bane. But to me, it was really all about Jordan Poole. The ball in his hands is what caused the most conflict for this Memphis defense and continually broke them down. Now, I would have loved to seen Loon go up with that, but hey, the way we were shooting the ball, you couldn't have been mad. So it was Jordan Poole, no doubt the MVP, but honorable mentions, Otto Porter Jr. We were waiting on the offense. We know he does all the other things. Here he is on the offensive glass. It all came together for him last night. Now, maybe this point will no longer be valid throughout this series, but Here in the second quarter, they finally ISO'd Ja on an island, and JP went to work. Now, the interesting thing is Ja plays it like he just kind of plays phantom defense. He's not going to get in foul trouble. He's just going to play some phantom shit. But the problem was they did it twice in a row, and now it's Klay like, no, let me get the Xavier Tillman switch. And so, look, I get it. A playoff record as well as we shot, it's hard to nitpick and complain about the offense, but I think we shot the ball so well, it masked some poor decision-making throughout this game, and Otto, boy, was it good to see that. I thought it was weird Memphis went completely away from posting Jaren Jackson Jr. up. He had a lot of success in those first two games, and listen, man, every time D-Lee's checked in, he's won us a possession or two. You got to give him some credit. You remember Xavier Tillman hit a huge corner three at the end of that play-in game that kind of did us in. He's a 20% shooter, but not against us. You got to make a note of that. Not against us. Now, this just pissed me off here. Look, let's just set the screen. Ja switches on to Wiggins, and then you give Wiggins the ball on the post. I think we just have to be more intentional in those situations, but you also understand that's not how they've played all season long, so they're not that good at it. But I just saw some of those holes throughout the game where we could have taken even more advantage. It's time to get greedy here in this series and give them no life because, again, we can't expect to shoot this well the rest of the series. We saw a lot of zone, box and one. I think you can expect Memphis to try to attack it in the middle and attack it with their bigs rather than their perimeter shooting moving forward. One thing to note about Zaire Williams, watch him here with Draymond flail his arms and flop. He knows he's not strong enough to really bang with our forwards, and so he just flops on everything. And last night, they weren't giving him the call, but I think our players need to understand, like, look, he's going to flop on any sign of contact. Ja, so patient at finding his rhythm there, understanding what he's going to see. And then the signature hang carry and extra elevation to finish that off glass. It's nasty, man, but I love this. Lifted slip, Wiggins, all high. Look, Memphis's defense was trash. You wonder how much they miss Dylan Brooks. He is their best perimeter defender. I think that their young players feed off their crowd. Steph eats a dead leg from Jaren Jackson Jr., and it's a 4-point play from Bane. You knew they weren't going to fold. So closing the half here, a couple of no calls on Steph as he comes flying into the paint. And then just a real suspect call on Draymond on a flop. And I started to contemplate, like, listen, man, maybe the NBA doesn't want the Warriors to win. You see all the Ja hype, the commercials and everything. Maybe they're like, no, let's push Memphis through here and in with the new and out with the old, because the way this game was being refereed on our floor, again, was discouraging. But you know what was encouraging? Andrew Wiggins going coast to coast and caving in Clark's chest at the rim. Big backs energy. I'd like to see a stat of how long Ja's in the air. We get all these useless stats. What's his hang time? It's just absurd. And it's funny, though, because Memphis, all they want to talk about is how tough and physical they are. But yet again, they are starting to play the victims. And it's turned the tables of physicality in this matchup where they're flopping and flailing. Draymond upset with Steph for not using the initial screen. And then Ja hits this into the half. And again, it started to make me feel like maybe it's just not meant to be. Now, I know a lot of people are circling this as the play where Ja really hurts his knee. Looks like maybe a little hyperextension there, but I'm not so sure about that. We'll go through these plays here in the second half, unfortunately, as that's kind of the storyline here. Again, Jackson Jr. facing up. I'll take it. This is just telling, right? The ref's muscle memory is like, Memphis ball. Oh, no, my bad. My mind was on giving Memphis the ball, though. Sorry. And then this is when you could start to feel and sense the rumblings of an avalanche. Klay's second three in a matter of moments here. Memphis timeout. They could sense it. You could sense it. Hell, young Kathy Bates could sense it. Here's some good recognition. Wiggins, Ja on an island here. And again, Ja, he doesn't really put up resistance. Like some young guys, right, they'll just foul right away. You get in foul trouble. Ja just yields. And then Steph, I like to see him use more deception as he ages. It's not going to be about quickness anymore, right? I love the selective trapping of Ja in this second half, who, by the way, was moving just fine, after that, supposed knee extension here. I got a kick out of this. Did you see Ja and Klay talking here while Steph was at the free throw line? And it just felt like Ja was probably being friendly, right? And Klay just walked away from him like, fuck you, kid. This was probably the cleanest split action we've got all series, but the trust of Memphis's defense started to break down and get pulled apart because they couldn't stop anybody on ball at the point of attack. Watch Ja come down here. He lands on the right knee, all weight there, but then when Poole boxes him out on the free throws, you're going to see him lift the leg as if to kind of protect it. It's very slight, but it's there, right? And then you knew the game was over when this happened. Klay coming off the handoff, he's like, fuck it. Couldn't get my balance, I'll still make it. Only Klay. But again, time and time again, just on the ball, breaking the defense. We didn't see that in Memphis. Now there's long closeouts. Bane still ain't moving that great. Big Euro step from Poole. So out of the timeout, I love the trap. And it's on the second action because the first action is kind of fake. Here comes the trap surprise. And it blows up the offensive set. You can't do it every time because then he's ready for it, right? But just pick your spots, and they did that beautifully last night. So building the evidence that Ja's knee was hurt already, well, look at this. He explodes and finishes, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Adrenaline guys play through it. I love seeing him get posted up here. Draymond, stop trying to finish finesse. Find a body and get to the line. But he got bailed out here with a late whistle, and it sucks that Andre's hurt. But his mentorship for Kuminga is worth his roster spot, in my opinion. Here we go again, them just getting pulled apart. You get this easy, deep penetration. It creates these long closeouts, and you saw this young Memphis team getting spread apart like some cheeks over and over again in this second half. Poole, 27 off the bench. Here's what's crazy. Kuminga's trot is like most dudes' sprint. Now, he's going to have to protect himself moving forward in this series. Here's another scenario where I would have loved to just post Kuminga on Ja. Instead, it ends up in a turnover. Steph has to hustle back and take a foul. And so again, as good as this looked last night, I thought it could have looked even better, and now is the time to get greedy. Kuminga in the short roll. How good has Looney been finishing amongst the trees? Then he gets switched out on John, and you can't do nothing with that big hezzy, right? And he's still bouncing all over the place. So I don't know, y'all. But I want to highlight good sportsmanship here since the talk is about so much bad stuff, right? Watch Brandon Clark hold himself up here instead of pancaking Steph. That was good to see. And then, the game plan is don't let Ja go left. Well, he was gladly obliging. Huge jelly finish here to end the third quarter. Not sure how much more we see of Tyus Jones in this series. Poole had him on the hibachi grill, right? Sizzling, frying, cooking him all sorts of ways. And then, look, man, Kavan is my nigga. I hate it. Had to be him. Slow-mo, what just happened? The biggest thing they may have discovered last night was 5 out, ball in Poole's hands with the second unit. They have no answer. And he let them know, listen, he is I, and I am him. I thought it was really important to keep our foot on their neck down the stretch of this game. Don't give them any hope or any type of moral victory towards the end of this game here, and that's what they did. Here comes the propeller, ring around the rosy, slingshot, Jordan Poole and Steph, and then Zaire Williams. He and, again, Tyus Jones, they may find themselves out of the rotation moving forward with Brooks back and now Adams back. T. Morant went from looking like Usher to looking like a Usher in one night. And then here it is. And what I see is when Jordan swung for the ball and missed, he decided to hold Ja for a second. It happens all the time. You miss, you grab the guy so he doesn't leave, right? Now, I'm not willing to dismiss that this didn't hurt Ja. I know a lot of doctors and people are saying the force and blah, blah, blah. Look, at the right time, at the right spot, if he's on the ball of his foot, I think it's possible. But here's the thing. The reality is Dylan Brooks never has that foul on GP2. None of these accusations are being made by this Grizzlies team, and it's getting ugly. Meanwhile, fucking Vince Vaughn's illegitimate son, Kyle Anderson, blows his gasket because he doesn't get a charge call. So, yeah, that happened too. And so this thing got really out of hand here late as we were on our way to a franchise playoff record, 142 points. We 30-pieced these boys in Game 3. And you know me, I don't usually like rubbing it in late, but I think this situation, it was justified and it was the right statement to make. Now, I don't know the status of Ja as I record this, but gauging off his reaction, you imagine he's going to miss some games, if not the entire series. And they're going to go right to this record of how they played without him in the regular season. That's all well and good. This isn't the regular season. If Ja Morant is out of this series, the series is over. But let's not lose sight of the big picture here. It's gotten so nasty between the fan bases and even the media. I think a lot of our initial reaction to the end of this game was kind of like, well, tough shit, Memphis. Y'all opened this can of worms, and now look, karma got y'all with Ja. And that's kind of how I felt. And then I watched Ja and his frustration limping off and into the locker room. And I was like, nah, man, 2 wrongs don't make a right. And that's not that Poole, I'm not saying that it even happened on that incident, but you got to feel bad for Ja. And we can't lose sight of what we're doing here. We're fans rooting for young dudes playing basketball. So hopefully everyone can remain in this series and we can finish this out straight up. Game 4, Monday. I'm out, y'all.